Okay. Hi everyone. So now we're gonna start the workshop on DAOs and innovative democracy models. So just before I start, I want to share more about myself, how I came here, and what I'm doing, what's happening, why I'm here giving this workshop. So my background is in actually in crypto and blockchain space. I've been in the space for quite a while. I have founded a few companies, and now after I have taken a little bit of break, I'm coming back and trying to see what else I can do in the space. And I got really interested in decentralized autonomous organizations. Also because they have this governance aspect. So I have, before starting my entrepreneurship journey, I worked in the European Parliament, also for a little bit in the German Parliament, in the Bundestag. So I have been thinking and studied political science. So I have been thinking about governance, democracy, what is a good way to take decisions collectively? What are the questions we should ask? How we can vote? How we can decide on important things? And I feel that this is the same question that people in DAOs are asking themselves. So I want to bridge a little bit of what exists already in democracy research, in the knowledge that we have already on how we can maybe take better decisions than the systems that we have right now, than with the systems that we have right now. So that's my interest. And then I applied for the conference. I applied really late, so I thought if I propose a workshop, I will get a better chance to attend the conference. And this is how I ended up here giving the workshop today. And yeah, a little bit my background. I come from Lithuania originally, but I left Lithuania many years ago. My first stop was Berlin back in 2006. And since then, I've traveled quite a lot, lived in maybe 10 different countries, most of them in Europe, but also outside of Europe. And now I'm excited to be back and excited to be in this setting, in the crowd with people who are thinking about regenerative solutions. So now, just to understand, just for me to be able to deliver this workshop and work with you on these topics better, I would like to have a show of hands and hear from you. So who knows what a DAO is, like generally? Okay. So a few people who is participant in a DAO. Just joined the DAO or is a contributor in a DAO in any way. There are some contributors. Okay. What about, yeah, it's really cold in here. I was there freezing endlessly and hoping that now we go to workshop spaces, so it's going to be warm finally. Then I come here and it's actually even, I think it's colder. I think right now in the sun it's warmer, but we work with what we have. Okay, so we have a few DAO contributors. And now about talking about blockchain, because this is the underpinning technology. So who is aware of the principles of blockchain technology, or for whom it's not a new thing, blockchain or crypto? Okay. Yeah. So we have we have quite knowledgeable audience, and at the same time, I wanted to make sure that this is for everyone, because we're gonna talk in our work session. So I will talk a bit, and then we will work together. We will just try to figure out something that is accessible to everyone, so that doesn't require any prior knowledge. But please, ask questions on the way, and let's get this going. So I was informed this is a paperless conference, a screenless conference. So I started painting. I took the stuff that I found that my son has and started painting. And actually, this had to be a little bit more interactive. So I'm going to paint a little bit more while we talk. So here is a DAO, and I'll explain this in a moment. So when asked what a DAO is, some people answer that it's a multisig and a Discord channel. Multisig, by multisig we mean a multi-signature wallet. And so this is a wallet, and it's a type of a wallet where in order to transfer some funds out of it, multiple people have to sign it. That's why it's a multisig. So it doesn't. It's not enough that I decide to do something with these funds. It's like maybe a bank account where whenever we want to transfer out the money, everyone or a big majority of those who are involved have to agree. And Discord, probably most of you know or have used Discord or are using Discord. Maybe some even are not struggling with Discord the way I am, but it's it's a communication channel, a messaging app, right? So these people put funds together in the wallet and are like on this communication channel. They're talking about what they're gonna do with these funds, but as we will see, this is not the only thing. So this is a lot of people chatting in the Discord channel, and they're also voting. So this is the sign for voting. And our participants are voting in using smart contracts and using decentralized way to do that. So basically, it's a vote that is recorded on blockchain. So it's verifiable, it's transparent. You can see who voted for what, and you can be sure if this vote is on chain that it's being implemented directly. So when we talk about blockchain, we often mention trustless systems. The systems where there's no stakeholder that we have to put our trust in. So imagine there was some kind of vote about if we're gonna fund from this wallet an organization. The decision was made, it's an on-chain decision. It was made using smart contracts, and automatically the funds are released to a certain wallet that we agreed to release it to. So it's one way to look at DAOs. And let me... it's not very pretty, but...
Because this is kind of...
fragile?
Fragile, yeah.
Okay, maybe, well, if you can do that, that would be super nice. Okay. So we noticed one explanation. It's like very, we're just talking about the tools. We're not talking so much about why actually this DAO exists. So here there's another explanation that decentralized autonomous organizations are virtual communities, and they come together around a common purpose, coordinated by voting through smart contracts on a public blockchain. So here we also have these people. They're also voting. So here vote is happening. They're also voting using through smart contracts on a public blockchain, but we have a purpose here. So we talk more in this definition, why did we all come together? And while one of the very common examples of DAOs is investment DAO, where just people come together, bring some funds together and make decisions together what to invest in, but it's very limited. You can do it in other ways. Yes, maybe you have to build in some trust layers, but that's a very limited use case. When we talk now about these virtual communities that come together, they might take decisions not in a wallet, therefore wallet is not being seen here. We might take a decisions what's next for our organization. We might vote, elect some leaders of the organization. We might do whatever we want, and where I see this, where the potential, the whatever use case that I'm mostly excited about is a big organization, a big company run as a DAO. So let's imagine Facebook would run today as a DAO, and all the profit generated by Facebook, all the revenue generated by Facebook is somehow distributed between contributors, between the people who come and actually code, do marketing, do organizational development, then it's distributed to those who create content. All of us who still use Facebook, we go there, we write posts, we put beautiful pictures, poetry, videos, we put our talents out there, and we could be compensated through let's say a Facebook token or a new Facebook token, and then those who actually bring revenue into a social network like that, those who are paying for advertising, could use this internal currency of a social network. So in this way, if we were able to get to this model, the potential is about the huge redistribution of wealth. So much more people who are part of this huge social network could actually become a part of its success, not the way internet oligopolies are run today. So that's another example of a DAO, or maybe a use case. Now, other use cases that DAOs are used today are also for various products that actually run on blockchain. So, of course, if we talk, we can use DAO. We could use it today to decide what we're having for lunch, but actually it doesn't make maybe so much sense. We could just do a poll on Telegram and vote on that. What DAOs enables is, especially for the products that run on blockchain or that partly are governed by smart contracts, is that people come together who don't know each other, haven't seen each other, don't know how it is to work with each other, so they don't have this trust, right? In order to do something, to start something together, we have to trust in each other. But the system like that, and this transferability, and this immutable history, so no one can change the way the votes were casted, enables us to trust each other more, and gives a tool for virtual communities to come together, and not only to create products, but also to run organizations. So here are some of the promises of the DAOs. So first of all, the underlying philosophy is that on many decisions, the more users vote, the better they will be. It depends what type of decision, and DAOs went now from early days where they wanted everyone to vote on everything, to different models where everyone noticed that it's very hard actually if you're in some kind of decentralized company, community, organization, to know everything that's happening and to have an opinion on everything. So now we turn to a little bit more organized way of voting, but basically still the underlying belief is that if people who are involved in building a product or building this organization are also given a right to participate in its governance, to take decisions, the products will turn out better. So in this ideal use case of a social network, we could decide like what type of personal data do we want to sell to anyone, or maybe no. Where do we want to store it? what advertisers are allowed, what is the code of conduct, what posts are allowed or not allowed on our social networks. So all of that we could take together, and the interests of those who are actually using this product or those who actually have built it can be represented better if we can use that vote. The other promise is inclusion, that more people have a say than today by the way that they're users of this product or members of the organization, which is, as we know, we kind of all want more participation when it comes to decisions that affects us, and we don't feel that going to vote once in 4 years promises that. I have to hold it closer. Okay. Then there is a hope for more decentralization, that the power is not so much in the hands of, let's say, if we run a company that has done an IPO, right, that is, so we have shareholders, we have board members, we have CEOs, we have C-level executives, they're taking decisions, and the whole management model is very top-down. Of course, nowadays there's a lot of experimentation with that. We see more and more alternatives arising, and I see everyone going towards that direction, but still actually the power, especially financial power, is very, very centralized, and we have seen it actually growing. And then there is hope that, you know, the question is, why should you vote, or why should you get involved in anything, in any product, in any organization? And so there has to be some kind of value for that you see in that, and for products that have their own tokens and their own internal economy built around that, we can come up with incentives. So those who participate, those who cast their votes, those who give proposals, submit proposals to a DAO, they could be incentivized in this kind of model. Now the issues. So the hope maybe was that as soon as we give users a possibility to vote and participate, everyone will vote and participate and be very very excited about that. Oh, hello, a lot of new participants. Please join. We're in the middle, kind of, but there are still some more things that will happen. So, yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. I don't know. I was told that the main hall is here, so I came here. Yeah. Maybe signage is not there. Okay. So I was talking about the fact that although maybe someone believed that as soon as we have technology that allows everyone to participate, we're going to have participation, and this is not something that happened. Actually, currently the participation in many of the DAOs is much lower than you know, election turnout. So it could be it's single digits. Could be 5% of those who have the right to participate are actually voting. Oh. Okay.
Can you go on for a moment without the mic?
Yeah, of course. So the one of the central issues that DAOs face today is the lack of engagement and actually lack of participation. So what happens when you have a lack of participation? So the decisions are not better. The quality of decisions is not better. It's something that we wanted to achieve through here, through more participation, crowd intelligence, more engagement. We don't have that if only 5% of interested people turn out. Inclusion is lower because not everyone is there. And many of the systems that run today are some kind of plutocracies where we have a model that one token equals one vote. So basically those who can buy more tokens have more decision power. What happens then that someone comes in with a lot of funds and decide actually on the outcome. So here is this bad idea where kind of monetary power actually influences the decisions, because we end up having more centralization here as well. Not something we wanted to achieve. Actually, yesterday I participated in another event only focused on DAOs with people who have built and run amazing DAOs, at least from what is available right now. And there was a question, what do you think is a bad idea about DAOs? What do you think that in maybe 10 years or 5 years we will look back to and we will say, oh, this was really stupid? And this happens in the crypto space, blockchain space all the time, because it's very new. So a lot of people come and experiment a lot. It's like a live lab. And then it turns out some years later something was a bad idea. So one of the answers that the panelists gave, that this relationship between holding a token and voting power is very something that we will look back to and will say it was a bad idea. And I agree with that. There are ways around that. We can talk about that if we want a little bit later. And then finally, incentives. These incentives that we thought are here for users actually to show up and participate, they are not there because if only the small majority decides on the final outcome, kind of the reason for an ordinary user to come and vote is too low. I mean, the incentives are not there. You don't see a point. Maybe there is no system how people are actually motivated to vote. So where this is all going, just a little bit about the newest developments to avoid this concentration of power. What DAOs are doing is introducing politicians, paid politicians, but in a very different sense. So we think of systems where we have delegates. So for example, if a user comes in, even holding a lot of tokens, they're asked to delegate their power. They can only cast a very limited amount of votes. Let's say no more than 3% of the total votes, or no more of 5%, which is still big for one entity, but it's much less than actually what is possible right now. And then we are delegating, they are asked to delegate their vote to delegates, to a certain number of delegates that are in the pool. And there the question arises, okay, so these delegates, they're reading the proposals, they're involved in the discussions, they're casting the votes, they use all of this technology that is still nowadays, quite from the UX perspective, quite complicated. Why should they do that? And there the ideas come, oh, maybe we should financially incentivize delegates to do this work, just like we incentivize politicians to actually do their work. The difference with between delegates and politicians is that for politicians, we go and vote once in 4 years. For in this form of delegation that is called sometimes liquid democracy, we could withdraw our vote or our delegated powers immediately. So imagine if we apply this to the country level, to the state level. Imagine you voted for a party or a politician. They're in the parliament. You see the things they're doing, you're not supporting anymore, or they turned out strange. You withdraw their vote, and as soon as enough people withdraw their vote, they have to leave and someone else can come in. So there is this constant, very fast check of the alignment of the values. So it's a little bit a short kind of intro in the liquid democracy. So I will give this. So now, when learning about DAOs, thinking what they do, I came back or became interested in seeing and looking at one of the traditional democracy theories, one of the democracy theories that come from political science, which is deliberative democracy. And now I'm going to talk about deliberative democracy a little bit, and I would like to ask you to start thinking already in the background which of the elements of this deliberative democracy we could maybe apply in the DAO world to solve some of the problems mentioned there, which is low engagement, low voter turnout, maybe biased votes, concentration of power. So deliberative democracy, it's a school of thought in political theory that claims that political decisions should be made by citizens through a fair and reasonable discussions and debates. So sounds good. People come together, debate, use the power of argument, power of reason, at least according to this theory, and then they propose a vote. And here it's important, there are a few things I drew here in addition to this debate, that it's not a debate that we see quite often on, I don't know, in media or on TV shows, if anyone is ever watching them anymore, but the discussions that we normally have in public space quite often today is that people come with their opinion and everyone sticks to their opinion, and I think like this is true and I think the other thing is true, and there's not much flexibility, especially when it comes to debates in the parliament already, because parties have preset policies and there is actually no debate. It's just people come, read the speeches, but actually everything is decided already what they're going to vote on. So in this model, we see that there is influx of information coming to this group of people debating. So there is some kind of papers, there is some kind of expert opinion, there is maybe input of science, and there's also this guy or girl here, they're holding a space, there's facilitation. So in this democracy model, there is a facilitated citizens council. They're getting all type of expert influx, expert information, all kind of discussions with people who are touched by the decisions that are going to be made, and through that they come together with a proposed solution. So I will give thank you so much. And the question is why is deliberative democracy worth looking at? So first of all, we go here from, according to the theory, right? We can see afterwards what critique points are. But those who propose this theory, they imagine that we go here from power to reason. So right now, how we take decisions, quite often we're seen as single units, and in the political process, we come to the decision that is aggregation of these single units opinions. So we have here now, 40 units in the room, and we have a vote, and there is a vote A or B, and 25 units want one thing, 15 units want another thing. So we go with that the majority, this is how majority vote works. What happens with that then other 15 those who were left behind don't find this so cool. And we see the results of this type of decision making, for example, in the US right now, where the society is really hostile. It's the kind of debate is difficult. It's like the conflicts are really entrenched, and because it's like only a two-party system, it's a lot of people feel left behind. So in deliberative democracy, the hope is that what we will have is then people from one group that is for the vote A, people from other group that is for the vote B, that they come together, they have time, a certain period of time, they're discussing, and they come up with some consensual proposal. at the end, some decision making might not be consensual, but the theorists believe that that is also okay. Then at least the arguments of others were heard and taken into account. A sign. Um, then we move here from competition to exchange of information and justifications. So here, when we like those who are for decision A are like, no, vote for A, and others are vote for B, and we're in this competition. If we go through deliberative democracy process, we're like all maybe more seeing, okay, why do we stand for A, why for B, what are the reasons, what are the arguments, why other people want this, how could we maybe work on some kind of more consensual approach there. And here we'll move from private concerns and biases. So here's a home, a garden, and my concerns and biases, like it's like inside. I'm thinking about what's good for me. In this approach, maybe we look more at the common goal and also at the better argument. So better arguments, and we're like the focus is outside of my garden. We look more at the common goal. And now I will give this to you, Felix. Thank you so much. So now, what is an example of deliberative democracy? Because it's nice to write theories, but what can we do with that in the real world? And the examples, there is a growing number of examples of application of this in political decisions. So with DAOs, we were talking about more private organizations, maybe corporations, companies. Here, the theory comes from political science and from public space. And we can imagine citizen councils that are representative. So let's say we have a picture of our society, and randomly people are drawn or asked to join these citizen councils. Just like maybe the juries in the US are asked to serve on a court. And then these people come together, those who said, okay, I will participate, and we have some time. There's deliberation process. There is a facilitator that is actually running this for you. And at the end of this process, this citizen council is proposing some kind of more or less consensual solution. So this is not used anywhere on a kind of state level, more on a local, maybe federal level. Yeah, that's not true. Okay, tell me more. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
They did already three.
Yeah. Okay. So my I was Thank you. No, it's really good. I was more looking at OECD studies, and they were looking more at this, but they had certain criteria. Maybe that's why they didn't include the some of the other solutions. So the ones that I was looking at more, they had a criteria that citizens meet for a certain number of days, that there is a representation that is representative, and that public authority initializes this, and that there is some kind of accountability through what in the end the result is. Because if at the end of this citizen council we just have, or any kind of deliberation process, we have an outcome that is not being followed up or integrated, implemented, then we just lost the time discussing. So now, thinking about how we can maybe merge this, or how we can harvest something from the deliberative democracy for the DAO governance. And these are the questions. This is thoughts, food for thought, and this is what I'm going to ask you to talk about with each other for the next 15 minutes, and let me know how this went. So I will ask you to get in groups of 3 or 4 and think of some ways, imagine of some ways how in this kind of rather anonymous, decentralized virtual community, we could try to organize a process like that, and whether we need what are, is it going to work, is it not going to work, what do we need for this to work, and what is possible and impossible in this space. So one question is representation. How do we ensure that those who we invited to deliberate represent the overall community? So we have people who join, and we know their identity is their wallet, basically. What information can we get from there? We don't know if they're we don't know their gender, we don't know their ethnicity, we don't know any kind of their age, and many other factors where they come from. Communication, how do we ensure where does this deliberation is happening? Could they join for a longer period of time, right? A lot of applications that we have of deliberative democracy today, and they look more at longer deliberation processes. Could be 4 days, 2 full days, 3 full days. Can we do this? Public scrutiny, how do the rest of DAO participants get informed about this process? How can they know about the rules, follow up? Incentives, what are the incentives? Why should someone actually give so much of their time, the most precious resource we have, to help a company, organization figure out what they want to do? Accountability, how do we, is it a binding decision, non-binding? And what else? This is open. I left it because I want to hear more from you, what you came up with in your discussions. So yeah, maybe let's start this. If you also want to draw, we have paper and pens. So the question is, we will hang this down. The question is, how do you think deliberative democracy could or could not be implemented in DAOs, or what are your thoughts on these other ways of organizing and taking decisions on a country or company level? So yeah, just turn back, maybe to turn to each other and just have an open discussion. Thank you, and I hope you can continue the discussions over the next few hours or days. Maybe you want to share a few things. Any one of you that you were talking about, what came to your mind? What do you want to share with the group?
Well, hi, my name is Sinue. Actually, we didn't come with a conclusion because the first thing we were all discussing was our personal experience where we all lived in our types of democracies, because they're not all the same. But I would say that what we kind of all agreed together was that having a system like a local system where people agree on certain rules, but there's a, let's say, regional concentration of power, so that certain communities who are from a certain place can be heard and can decide on their local rules, but they agree on the main rules of the common, let's say. So we kind of discussed about localism and how it's kind of an interesting concept, and we were getting to the point of how can we, integrate that in the DAO.
Yeah, so in DAOs, there is a wish to have more of that. So one of the examples is that people organize around circles, or however you call them, people working on certain topics, and even with the funding rules that if a circle needs just a little bit of money, that not then the rest of organization has to decide on that, but if it's a small amount of money and that is not having a big impact on the budget that the DAO is together governing, then they can pass this proposal with very few votes. And of course there are rules against abuse so that you don't always pass, you know, little amounts, but giving more power to these kind of within the centralized organization to even more decentralized units. Yeah, so there is a lot of thinking about this, because when everyone is voting on everything, it gets very confusing and very complicated if you just want to do small thing. So maybe for local communities, you know, they just want to do small improvement, but there has to be some kind of state level budget approved, everything is stuck, and it's a good example. Yeah, maybe you want to share with.
You want to go? So we kind of came up with the idea that to tackle that problem of the deliberate democracy, that it would be nice to have kind of an application process. First of all, to look at the token distribution, and then to see if people who apply for such a thing might be, I don't know, related somehow in regards to the token distribution, and then have kind of like a structured application process. And but in general, we were raising a little bit the question also like if this is a typical governance problem of DAOs, because we were saying that there is a lot of like, let's say, real world projects out there that have quite good governance problems and that work governance structures and that work super well. And we were wondering a little bit if this specific problem is happening a little bit because there's a lot of DAOs without a real project purpose at the end. So they are a DAO because they jump on this new technology and they want to try and test what is possible with this technology, but there is not a real project behind that is kind of driving a deeper cause.
Generally, I think the question could be what is a DAO for and why has it been there? And then I think if you ask that question, the purpose question, you can also ask the members of the community the question, because in the end, the DAO is a community, is a small representation of a kind of society. And then you can also ask why the people in there, and if they have a certain purpose, if they have a certain intrinsic motivation, then they probably also decide on only focusing on a certain amount of DAOs, namely not 100, but maybe only 1 or 2. And then they also have the capacities and the resources to actually participate and to take over a role, to take over a function, and to take over a responsibility, and not just follow a hype.
Thank you. And I think part of this is also what you are mentioning, the existing systems that have quite good governance models, is that there is not enough of communication between communities. These are technology people, they're building protocols, they're building some kind of governance, they just do however this is available at that point. And also my kind of goal, general goal of coming here is to learn more about cooperatives, and this is the closest thing, cooperatives and DAOs, but there's not much exchange of information so far, I think. And then there's problem that someone maybe has 20 different tokens and they're from 20 different projects, and how do you then get involved in 20 projects? But you find, if let's say the DAOs represent companies, products that we use today, we have on the phone 50 apps, so I cannot go and participate in every app governance, right? And there are now even like meta structures like this creation or tests of the idea of big super DAOs that are kind of like parties. So I dedicate my voting power to that DAO, and it goes and votes in these 20 companies or 50 companies because I believe that the way they take decisions, that this is on my behalf. It's just like how it's funny how quickly we have this new ideas about governance, and then we have delegates, then we have parties, so we come back a little bit to the usual processes, but maybe there is some kind of some kind of evolution. Maybe it's every time a little bit better. And so with these super DAOs, the same. You can withdraw your delegation power really quickly. So if they don't do what they said they will do, or if they take some decisions that people are unhappy, they will lose that the power, and then also incentives related to that.
Pass on to you then, because I think it's very interesting what you say. Asking the question of governance within DAOs, and I think co-ops indeed are a super interesting reference. So Irene can talk more about that from the Disco perspective. But maybe what I would like to say is maybe going one step back before we talk about governance and all those protocols, is also acknowledging the fact that each DAO nowadays has at least a forum, or there's a Telegram group organized around the DAO. And I think as a very first step is to start to understand the culture of communication around the DAO. And this is really something that very often is not happening, but looking at the way people communicate, looking at the emerging culture, that's already a first step to better understand how can that be the basis for more deliberation, and how can people create protocols. And if they cannot do it within the DAO, because there's a lot of frustration happening around existing DAOs, but there's not the possibility of somehow changing the DNA of it, because you can't access the technology. But there might be other ways of maybe cultivating those debates to such an extent that at some point it is impacting the structure of the DAO. And that's maybe just like a first step to take. But yeah, I pass it on to you.
Yeah, thank you. So we at the beginning of the conversation, we were talking about what would be the smaller group for making decisions, and maybe that has to be done in small groups, up to 19, 20 people, a la disco way, the way we propose, and then vote and decision would be based on that group. So that you can make very quick decisions at that level, and then you can start moving forward, making other types of decisions. But there was a proposal, Charlie made a proposal about layers of decision making. What you guys were discussing about the purpose, what is a DAO for? Why would a very large group of people come together to do something? So there has to be a purpose. So what is the purpose of the DAO, and how then the DAO makes whatever the mission of the group possible. So those decisions need to be driven by that type of purpose. The economic part of it and all that forking and the staking and all that has to be put at the service of the purpose of the DAO, obviously. So we were talking about that. Would be interesting to experiment with that. Okay.
Maybe a few more sharings, and yet talking about the purpose, even the kind of the maybe some of the earlier DAOs. Now there's more thinking about something that is called constitution. So where actually the rules are written down. What is the purpose? What do we actually want to do here together, so that this is codified somewhere, that there is a text, and then even for some cases where there is maybe exploit of a DAO, that there is a second layer, that the decisions are not being implemented immediately, but maybe there is a layer of a board of stewards or board of contributors who have worked a lot for the DAO, and then they can double check and see and refer the decision back to the community if there is belief that actually it was against that constitution. Then of course we can't have everything. Then of course there is kind of more centralization and less maybe anonymity, but there is there is a balance. So it's impossible to just have everything. Of course, we can do trustless, just vote, and everything is being implemented. But then, in the case of exploits, if something is happening against the purpose of the DAO, how can you account for that? So there is more thinking. Even ideas of two-house solutions are now implemented for the DAO. So hello. Now that you have something like Senate and Congress, there is more distribution of power for different actors.
Thank you. Interesting enough, our discussion was related to what we just heard before, and we had some questions, not answers, and it's related to what we discussed as being an inner contradiction between DAOs and deliberate democracy, meaning that DAOs kind of organize around formalized programmed relationships, and deliberate democracy consensus is focused on living relationships. And there's something where living relationship conversation is needed for consensus building, and how a formalized programmed process is kind of in a contradiction to that. And how can be DAOs programmed in a way or designed in a way that they support the living process of conversation? And how do you do that? That basically the living consensus building conversation process is in the center, not the programming part. That's the question we don't have to answer.
Yeah, it's a good question, right? How, I mean, in terms of technology, but also in terms of, so we came together to do one thing, but then what if community goes the other way? And then quite often there is a meme like that DAO founders say, you can decide on any color of the car I'm gonna buy as long as it's black. So there has been now cases where when the decision is being taken that let's say the founder team doesn't like, they refer it back, they change the question. So there is no flexibility. On the other hand, of course, especially a product focused DAO is very vulnerable to get to the situation that nothing is being done. So now kind of the good practice is actually to start rather centralized in a founding team with kind of clear idea. And then when a product is maybe live or a bigger adoption is there, then you slowly open it up. And yesterday I met a lady, for example, writing a PhD on exit to a community. How do you, like, you can exit a company, go do an IPO, then it becomes a public company, right? But is there another paradigm? We read maybe about yesterday about Patagonia exit. They called it exit to purpose. So is there a way for the founders at some point, or the management team, to leave the company entirely, to get others to come in and to actually make it a community-owned company, for-profit company? That's an interesting question, but also, yeah, it can be used in other contexts.
Yes, maybe we were talking about this deliberative process, like citizens' assemblies. And I think a big question is to how do we choose the categories for making it representative? So in the citizens' assemblies, we take like gender and age and education level, but maybe in DAOs might be something completely else. Do you want?
And I think also the deliberative process in itself, how we structure that. I know there are some experiments with that, with like pooling democracy in Taiwan and Hong Kong, how you can really try to bring that what we know works in like a real life situation where you like face each other, and how you can do that online in the best way. And I think we have to like experiment with a lot of different processes, how to make that better. But at the same time, I think it is also just one kind of tool in a tool set, because there are so many different types of decisions, and like the decision mechanism needs to really fit the kind of problem that we have, and where do we see like the conflict lines in a DAO, or or is it more like a technical decision that is actually like best decided actually by some experts, but then it's like, how do we identify the experts and stuff? So I think that is like all something that is, we are not looking for one solution, but we are looking for multiple solutions for different types of decisions.
Yeah, communication, right? You also spoke about like how do we actually deliberate that we not in a Discord chat. We cannot. It's like it's very difficult if we just do 2 days Discord chat to come up with something. That has to be something like a little bit better. And yeah, about the tokens, I was also thinking about that. I mean, the only things you can know actually is the number of tokens held when they came to this community, you know, just a few parameters, maybe some kind of association to other projects if the wallets want to give this information. So, but that you have small token holders, big token holders, maybe contributors and people with kind of various connection to the DAO. So does anyone want to add something? I didn't ask all the groups. Yeah. And then we go to lunch.
Okay. We had some interesting discussion. We came up with more questions also than answers here, but I like very much what you said about multiple solutions. We're not looking for one solution. It's going to be multiple solutions probably. And another thing we talked about is that when you get into political science, there's no end. It gets more and more complicated, and there's no single or simple answer to anything. Yeah. One model I liked, and I'm doing a PhD in this as well, and here in Berlin, and I love this algorithmic governance and governance in general, DAOs. And there's one model from a guy called from a researcher called Archon Fung, and it's called Democracy Cube. And so it considers that three things have to be considered, let's say, in order for to define if something is democratic or non-democratic. One is information. Yeah, does communication information? Does everybody, or how much information does everybody have about what's happening, how it's happening, etc. Then access. So does everybody have free and open access to decision making, to participation, etc. And then decision making power. Yeah. So are people just being consulted, like in the case of the founder? Yeah, okay, it can be any color as long as it's black, or does everybody, or to what extent everybody has decision making power? So depending on how the process is in these three axes, then it's more or less democratic. That's one possible model, just an idea to be considered. Yeah.
Yeah, we also wanted to add something which is kind of related, but it suggests another model of like another voting system, which is called the minimum resistance voting. I don't know if you've heard of it. So it's actually something that we just recently learned of from a friend of ours who's doing his PhD on this specific field. And the idea is that instead of having either a top-down or bottom-up voting system that works or operates around majorities, you actually kind of unify around your resistances. So it's kind of that first there are like several options, and usually you would go for the majority voting system, but here instead you actually explain which resistances you have towards a proposal. And by this, you could actually create kind of a in sync thinking of empathizing with each other's resistances, because everyone has resistances, right? So you kind of spin it around, and it's not around the majority thinking, but around how you think of your own resistances. And then through this negotiation process, you develop the minimum resistance and develop new decisions. And you can even through this develop like an alternative options, even if you might start with like, okay, we have 3 different options, but then you can develop like a fourth one through the synchronized thinking and like negotiation. And that's something that we wanted to suggest and bring up as well. Yeah.
Can I mention something else very quick? One of the coolest examples I've come across voting. Can I mention something quick? All right. One of the coolest examples I found, I didn't know about this, is something that it's done. I think it's on the IEEE, International Engineering Association, something. It's called, it's rough consensus, and it's basically voting by humming. I don't know. So there's a lot of people in the room, And they ask a question, so who is in favor? Everybody. Who is in favor? And they don't care about the votes and the hands, nothing. It's just how loud and how roughly consensual.
You have to train humming. Yeah. Okay, thank you. The lunch is being served now. It was interesting to hear from you, and let's keep on innovating in that space. Yeah. Thanks.